Hey guys. So I was digging around in the comments on this report, and I found a few things. One that was actually pretty scary. But this one person's comment I would like to address real quick first. All right. So this person says that this document's been going around for 2 years, and they're claiming 30% against, only 30%. Question this alone, lies with numbers. Um, no, actually, those figures line right up because, of course, we have this video from Klaus Schwab.
But what we are very proud of now is the young generation, like Prime Minister Trudeau, President of Argentina, and so on, that we penetrate the cabinets. So yesterday I was at a reception for Prime Minister Trudeau, and I know that half of this cabinet, or even more half of this cabinet, are for our actually young noble leaders of the world.
Right. So last time I checked, 70% is more than half. Makes sense to me. I don't see why you would question it based off of that. I think it's really dangerous to assume that people are going to do the right thing. And that's what I'll get into this next one about, too. I clicked on one of these links, which sent me to here. And within here, I think he had another couple links that eventually got me to here, which is basically another form of the article that he'd done. A lot of it's copy paste, but he had it dated September 2019. Pretty sure this is not this dude's real name. What we now know as the Great Reset has been in the works for a while. I first learned of the Great Reset for Canada back in August 2019 when I had a chance dinner conversation with a senior officer in the Canadian military. While waiting to load up our plates, I asked what he had been doing in Ottawa between stints with NGOs and embassies. He told me that he had been working on an advisory group to the Trudeau government. The agenda was not the development of 5-year policies, the usual event horizon for a government, but to extend the vision into the future further 20 to 40 years out. He explained, expecting me to agree, that Canada's present economic model was seriously flawed and had to be replaced. I bit my tongue. He continued, people expected too much. Unregulated consumerism was unsustainable, and Canadians would have to learn to make do with less. The government would have to take more control over people's lives and enforce an austere lifestyle. The present high economic expectations are the enemy, and we would have to have a strong global government that would redistribute the wealth to poorer nations. Fossil fuels would be phased out on an accelerated timetable, and air travel would be limited to need. Too flabbergasted to hold my tongue, I said that I believed in progress through more gradual changes, and that the sudden imposition of a frugal existence would cause a revolution. He smiled, nodded, and agreed. I read it as "bring it on," or a response that was a modern day version of "just watch me," or possibly "hold my beer." I continued, saying that he was advocating an experiment in socialism that could be extremely dangerous and could kill thousands of people. Suddenly, he seemed to realize that I wasn't the kind of intellectual he thought and turned back to his food. I took this encounter seriously, and I had to wonder why a senior military officer was attending clandestine meetings discussing strategies for decomposing and restructuring the Canadian economy. A plan that seems to have leapt from the pages of the LEAP manifesto, Naomi Klein's Marxist blueprint, using the irrational fears of climate change to leverage an austere lifestyle onto overconsumptive Canadians. So yeah, I mean, that other person's comment about 30%, well, no, that makes perfect sense. Because if you think that there's not people that want this, that want to push this forward, and if you think that they're not people in places of power. I mean, I once had an argument with a guy. He said that, shit like this, and this is well before COVID, by the way. He said shit like this wouldn't happen. Ever. Couldn't ever happen because people would do the right thing. The police, the military, they'd say no. And and they just, I don't know. I guess he seems to think that they would just arrest their superior officers or the chief of police or whoever. I'm not convinced that that's the case. And I mean, the evidence is pretty clear. I mean, you've got this article saying that the Canadian Armed Forces is basically going woke and stopping people from using gendered pronouns. So, I mean, who's in charge of the government? Is it someone who's reasonable and rational and right, or is it someone who's like really, really progressive and wants you under their boot heel? I mean, the other guy's comment about like just watch me or oh yeah, I agree there will be a revolution and I'll have to like crush it somehow, and then he smiles when he thinks of that. I mean, it's just gross, but there's people who think that way. There are absolutely people who think that way. And then, of course, you've got that pretty infamous now commercial from the American Army. You're trying to get people to join the military. Like, where are all the guns? Where's all the right? There's a certain type of a person that you want to attract, and that's someone who has a will to fight. And these are people who have a will to protest. That's not the same thing. It's not the same thing at all. Yeah. So I think it's just really puts it into perspective. I mean, and it's scary as hell. You think your institutions on every level are not just failing you, but actively working against you and against your own good, right? Believing that they know better and that you're just some child to be taken care of, or gosh, it just feels creepy. It feels manipulative, and I don't like it. Anyway, that's all I got for you guys tonight, and I'll see you in the next one.